Good evening. I first heard Steve speak when I was a freshman at Ball State, and since then I've heard him speak on many occasions across the country in many different venues, and I can honestly say that I'm as eager to hear what he has to say tonight as I was then. The reasons for that would make themselves very clear through his presentation. But before we begin, Steve's work with the design build firm Jersey Devil, as well as his work with architecture students across the country, always takes the design opportunity at hand and turns it inside out, upside down, twists it around, winds it up, and lets it fly. So without any further ado, it's my pleasure, Steve Badanes.
Okay, how's that volume? Pretty adequate? Does it change when you go up? Can you hear it? Yeah. That's good. I didn't do anything other than speak a little louder. Okay, that'll be what you get. They say if I talk down here, it's different than if I talk here. I have to hold my head absolutely still during the whole presentation. Thanks, Robin, and thanks all of you for coming. All of you for coming. Marshall, you have a birthday. I've been, as Robin indicated, I've been to Ball State several times before. It's one of my favorite places to come visit. It's actually the first place that I ever was allowed to teach architecture students. Marvin Roseman showed us confidence in the fact that I might be able to do this in 1981, and I worked with Art Shaler, who's still here, in the famous studio where we raised chickens here. And since that time, I work in the summertime for the Estimar School in Warren, Vermont, which is a design build school, and we had an opening for an instructor one year, and we asked Art to come join us, and this was maybe about 7 or 8 years ago. And over the years, we've developed a pretty good relationship. I think the Estimar School now does a design build studio in the spring every year, and a lot of Ball State students have an intern. Robin was an intern chair, was an intern, and we've had plenty of them there in our professional programs. So there's a real special relationship that way too. So it's great to come here and speak. What I'm going to speak about tonight is what I usually speak about, which is building as a way to do architecture, actual physical construction, and also as a way to teach architecture. I'm going to show some of the projects that we have designed and built with the Jersey Devil group, and some of the projects that I've worked on with students. And I'll try and show them almost like a movie in a sequence of process shots showing the actual construction and the decisions that we made, and try and explain why these buildings look the way that they do. So I don't use any notes. If you can turn off the lights, I'll see if I get a picture. Or do I turn off the lights? Is this it? Okay, volume is still good up there at balcony? I work with a group called Jersey Devil. We're architects, artists, and inventors committed to the interdependence of design and construction. And we maintain a small office, actually just a post office box and a phone machine in Stockton, New Jersey. But we're pretty itinerant, working out of wherever our commissions take us. We do all of the construction ourselves and generally live on the site, either in trailers or crew-built structures. These are some of the first buildings that we built. In the 60s, this is what we thought the future of architecture was going to be. Lightweight, air-supported structures, easy on the pocketbook, easy on the landscape, incredibly high in fantasy content, either the thinnest of skins between you and the outside, or hermetically sealed in an alien envelope. And it was a fabulous fantasy, but it was a fantasy that was fueled by cheap energy. Enormous amounts of air being blown in these buildings to keep them up, and enormous amounts required to heat them and cool them. So what we tried to do when we graduated from school, we built most of these structures during school, was to retain the spirit of these buildings in a more energy efficient package. This is the first building we built right out of school. We never did an apprenticeship. Maybe you can tell. It's a little house near the beach, so it's shaped like a snail. In the center is a tower built out of manhole riser stacked with a crane. Off-the-shelf laminated barn rafters spiraled around it, sheathed with cedar, and then sprayed with about 4 inches of urethane foam, which is then plastered. And we don't know totally what we were doing. We did some intelligent things. We did the insulation on the outside, which is good. Didn't know that. It is good. And we use spherical forms, which is an efficient way to close the space. You can just about heat this building with a candle. Another building from about the same era, 1974, in New Hampshire. This one's called the Helmet House. We built it for a client who fancied himself as kind of a Don Quixote type of character. One of his program requirements was that he wanted his guests to feel somewhat ill at ease. So the house takes in a kind of an aggressive form on landscape. This is in south elevation. And the site, which was picked by the client, is a giant granite rock outcropping that gives a really organic quality to the interior. It's basically taking these barn rafters, again, that are used to build agricultural buildings in the Northeast, linking them up in pairs and then just tipping them over this boulder just like a huge slinky. Then it's covered with Homosote. It's a building material made of recycled newspapers, closed cell, styrofoam insulation, a layer of chicken wire, and then a thin coating of ferro cement, which is used in the boat building industry, a very cheap, durable, and strong way to enclose this structure. This is the interior, which is pretty non-standard and client-specific. The fireplace, your most basic, primitive, caveman, hearth-like situation. These will be the stairs going up to the upper levels of the living room. Bathroom. He didn't want the interior partition, so when we got to the bathroom, we were able to achieve a little bit of visual privacy, but not a lot of acoustical or olfactory. And finally, at the top, the master bedroom. He saved a lot of money here by doing his own interior decorating. You might wonder, there's not really any building inspection or building codes in New Hampshire, just a septic system is inspected. And there's a final view of the house on its wooded site. And this is the first, we built this, finished this in 1974, and it was the first building, it's over 20 years ago, the first building we got some national publicity for. Architecture magazines never did anything on it, never have, actually, except in Japan, maybe the samurai. But Popular Science did a little piece in the National Enquirer, gave the Weird Home Award, 1978. These are pretty good projects to start a lecture with, and you realize it's got to go uphill. They're pretty good. They loosen up the crowd a little bit. And they're pretty good projects to start a career with as well. Instead of going to work in an office, the idea that you could go out into the countryside where no one could see, where there were very few building codes, and build your fantasies was an incredible learning experience. The feedback from real construction is amazing. And the early buildings are pretty much, they're pretty rough in terms of design and execution. They're like folk art or folk architecture, almost cartoons or one-liners. But there's something about these early buildings, the idea of structure as a form generator, the idea that a building can save or generate energy, and the ideas of simple geometry that form the basis for the work that we've done since then. So I'm going to try to move into a more mature phase of Jersey general history when the first energy crisis of my lifetime hit in 1974. A lot of 60s activists became energy advocates, and we became incredibly interested in what was then called, and I think it's still called, alternative technology. We started using it in our on-site living conditions. And here, Donna Walter is with us here tonight, making some chocolate chip cookies in a solar oven, which is basically a window, an insulated box, and a couple of mirrors, and it swivels on an automobile tire. She actually burned a roast in this. A great technology for parts of the world which are being deforested just for firewood cooking. And in 1975, we found some clients who were interested in a solar and wood-heated house. The lifestyle that represented, they had recently returned from 7 years in Tanzania and were homesick for something resembling African huts. And the closest thing I could find to huts in rural New Jersey are these spruce grain silos that are still built by the Unadilla Silo Company. And we ordered 6 of them. There's actually one inside the other. It gives you room for insulation and for wiring. They're lined up on an east-west axis connected by a clerestory truss, which supports an air-tight solar collector, which was one of the very first in the country. We pulled the silos apart by 4 feet and ran a 2-story high slot down the center, which gives us circulation between the silos, a place for natural daylighting, and a place to vent the utilities. Yeah, there we go. In this photo, you can see that this is the north elevation. If with the leaves are off the trees, particularly with snow on the ground, there's a lot of available sunlight, both for daylighting and for heating. And then in summertime, when the leaves are back on the trees, there's plenty of shade, and the ambient temperature on the site is 20 degrees cooler than the surrounding farmland. So in this case, the site gives you a break in designing a passively comfortable house. What the architect has to do if the site is more hostile is to imitate nature in his or her response to the climate. Now I'm going to go back a couple. Sticking these in here on the way over from Missouri today, and maybe a little bit out of order. For instance, on this project, which is a retirement home for an airplane pilot, it's called the Airplane House. It's on the high plains of Colorado. Virtually no vegetation, maybe 1 3-foot-high juniper bush. We had to use every trick we could to keep this building passively comfortable. So it's wide and high on the south, low and earth sheltered on the northeast and northwest. It's covered in corrugated asphalt siding, brown on the walls to absorb the low winter sun, and silver on the roof to reflect the high, hot summer sun. There's movable insulation. You can see that it slides into the walls like a pocket door in a window, and basically the theory is that you open it, the house up, winter day, most of the glazing faces generally south, the sun comes in and it's stored in the concrete mass of the structure, and then you close it at night to keep the heat in, and you reverse this procedure in the summer. There's little roll down space blankets over those clear-story windows. So in a very simple way, the owner can control the amount of heat and light that enter and exit the building. And what I'm going to show in some later projects is how it's possible for a building to become intelligent enough to do this for itself. This is the project right after we finished building it from the northeast. When I first drew this thing, it was a lot softer and rounder and more lovable. But we got out to the site, and there was really nothing out there but cactus and rattlesnakes. So the house became a lot pointier and acquired these fangs on the carport. It's like a desert creature that's partly hungered in for protection, which would be the living area, which needs all that earth insulation, and partly sort of striking out in attack, which is just a little laundry room and carport. Really simple materials, corrugated asphalt siding, hardboard, insulated steel doors, exposed 2x4 and plywood framing. And the only industry in Colorado City is the Delray Lamp Company that makes those beanies for snowplows and police cars. And wanting to support the local industry, we took a tour of the factory and selected a couple of really pretty ones, and had it fitted up with some sewer pipe that was left over from the water line. And he's got these little, because he's a pilot, he's got these little blue runway lights, that's 12 volt, that are stuffed out at the bottom of here. So when he comes up to towards his house, he can hit a button on his dash, and the little blue lights will come on, and the signals start spinning. It's energy, it's all 12 volts, it's pretty energy efficient. Basically, the desert has grown back to the house. We planted it with a lot of stuff. Actually, sedum, I think, is a weed that grows beside the road, and in summertime, it's like a ship coursing along on a sea of wheat, and in winter, a strong, dark, abstract silhouette against the white winter landscape. Heading west, this is the first building which we built in California, 1976. It's called the Football House. It's about 45 miles south of San Francisco and about a quarter of a mile from the San Andreas Fault. And I went to architecture school back east, and we didn't learn anything about earthquake design. So we just sort of eyeballed it. Tried to do something that would be really spectacular if the big one hit. Maybe end over end. With the idea of putting some goalposts down at the bottom. It's actually, now it's a pretty seriously good way to build in a fault zone. Like those second growth redwood trees, it has a really deep-rooted foundation, which in this case is concrete and then a wood frame, which is flexible and moves with the tremors rather than try to resist them, which is the theory of a freeway. This building is only 5 miles away with a totally different microclimate. It's about 10 miles from the ocean as the crow flies and 2,000 feet above sea level. You can see that the ocean would be to the left. The grass has been just plastic down against the hill from the storm winds that come off the Pacific. And we had winds of up to 125 miles an hour when we were building this building. And if you have an environmental feature like that on your site, it should become a major guiding force for the design if you expect the building to be very successful. So what we tried to do was to scoop out the hill and set the house in there where the wind would go over it, but the sun would still come in where we could use it for heating and for daylighting. And then by following the contours of the hill, we push the wind around it, which creates a wind-free courtyard on the north for the native plants and the hot tub and the whole California routine. And then by bringing the earth and dirt, earth and grass up onto the roof, is an attempt made to blend this building with its awesome site. Really simple plan, just a curved ranch house. On the far right is a garage with a little wine cellar and that earth berm. And then there's the kids' wing. It's hard to point with this thing. It's not really worth it. The parents' wing at the top with as much public space as possible in between, opening out onto a courtyard on the north with a little vegetable garden on the south. And the section is just like an extrusion with end conditions. Basically, there's panoramic windows to the south and below, which the sun comes in and is stored in this masonry floor for passive solar heating. There's an overhang which blocks the summer sun and keeps it out, the high sun. We take advantage of the slope on the site by putting in this trough wall, which is a concrete wall behind glass and fiberglass here, so that by natural convection, the cool air falls behind the wall and goes through vents and is heated. The sun comes up to here where you can either bring it in for solar heat or vent it, which induces a cool breeze through the building. And he's got a little wood stove with some backup heat, but he basically burns that for atmosphere. He's never used any electric heat in the building. And some construction shots. This is the trommel open forward. The vents are there. The utilities are going in under the slab, pouring the slab with an overhead pump truck. Here the concrete's been poured, and we're using the old form boards to build a curved box beam around the south side of the building. And the roof is, these are truss joists. They're just out of a catalog, that particular shape. It's lenticular form. You give them the span, the load, how fat you want them in the center. Computers design the trusses, robots assemble them in the factory, ship them out to the site. You can put them up in one afternoon, and you have a very strong compound curved airplane wing form that's resistant to the wind loading and sympathetic to the rolling hills that go down to the ocean from the site. And it's covered in pine decking, then a plywood diaphragm for shear, rigid insulation, and then a very high quality hot mop roof with actual with extra gravel and actual drain tiles built into it. If you're going to build an underground building, you better do a pretty good job on the roof because a callback can be pretty expensive. And then we loaded up with dirt. There's 4 inches of road base, 4 inches of topsoil, and we were a little nervous about taking a bulldozer up there, so we did it all by hand with wheelbarrows. But when we finished, there was grass on it. One day we found about half a dozen cows up there. It was saving ourselves a lot of work. And then we seeded it with wither rye, which takes root very quick and holds all that dirt in place, and then the native planting takes over, which is clover and wildflower. This is a great example of what's possible if the architect is on site as the builder rather than back in the office. This is the architect here in the green shirt is my partner, Jim Adamson, and the excavator, Jim Dempsey. And we were having, Jim Adamson and I had some walls on the plan, and we had planned to pour them in concrete and veneer them in stone. And Dempsey was having lunch with us, and he said, why don't we just take some of these giant boulders on the site and make the walls out of them? And it was a fabulous idea. And I think he suggested it because he enjoyed the challenge of that type of work and wanted another couple of weeks on the job. But he was incredibly skilled and he could maneuver these behemoth rocks around as easily as you or I could move the little ones. If you're going to do this kind of work, it's not a good idea to use your own truck. If you can read in the back, it says Burns Rental on that truck. It's a very rare photo of an 8-ton boulder in a 3/4-ton dump truck. One side is trying to dump, and the other side is spitting hydraulic fluid down on the driveway. I managed to get a picture of it before it caught fire. Sent to burn for Christmas card. I always say the most important thing you can learn here, probably on this whole lecture, is the time to use your own tools and the time to rent them. And I think the rental tool guys know that. So it worked out okay. There's some of those big boulders merged with the little ones. The house is in there someplace. There's a 20-foot span arch we're proud of. They were poured across the garage. This is the vehicular entrance. The pedestrians come past the garage, around into this plant-filled courtyard. And those discs peeping out of the earthworm on the roof are solar collectors to heat the domestic hot water. In this picture, the nature has begun to overtake the architecture. I think the picture was taken probably a couple of years after we built the building. And then this is standing right about the solar collectors looking north towards San Francisco, past the hot tub with its insulated cover. The difference here is that this picture was taken 13 or 14 years after we built the building. So if you make the building an armature for nature, then it just gets more beautiful as time goes by, rather than becoming a maintenance headache. Instead of having to bring in a guy to put on a new roof, you just bring in a gardener on a regular basis. Yeah. This is the interior, totally custom as per client request, but doesn't miss a chance to incorporate thermal mass, which is important to the solar strategy. The floors are quarry tile and a radius right on the slab. All the partitions are either stucco and stone, and since they're not bearing, they stop about a foot short of the ceiling, and there's some glass there which is detailed into a little slot that allows that roof to move as it's loaded. What? Yeah, if you do. Mike can get up there and tell me stuff. I don't have any of those. That stuff. What? Okay, great. Well, a lot of local craftsmen worked on this project. Tom Keller from Menlo Park built the kitchen. It's curved, steam laminated maple with an oak edge. John Capel, another local cabinet maker, built the table and the chairs to the radius of the house. Michael Moore from San Francisco did the painting. We built a special plaster cove to make it more integral with the wall rather than something you just stick on it. This is the master bedroom. The ceiling is compound curved, laminated. This is the cheapest utility grade 1x2s, all nailed up before the days when you could get those little power nails too. And the headboard is cast into the concrete. The bed is a water bed, so there's enough thermal mass in that room that allows us to carpet the floor when we wanted. This is coming around into the bathroom, a curved vanity with curved bifold doors. It's a very high level of design and construction in the building. In the earlier projects, where there were smaller budgets, we tried to use stuff from industrial and agricultural vernacular to do interesting projects for not very much money. If the budget's a bit more generous, it's nice to take a place where you would expect to see something standard like a door or a window and rethink that whole issue. So we made all of the doors and some of the windows for this project. This front door here is laminated out of redwood and shaped with an automobile body grinder. Curtis Schreier from the old Anpark group built all of the interior doors. Curtis felt like a door is a missed opportunity for storage, and if you thickened it up, in its cross-section, you can incorporate in the bathroom. We had a place for soap and towels. There are some tie racks and shoe holders, and then also a place with bowling trophies. It turned out to be very beautiful doors, and he didn't want to use ordinary hardware, so he carved his own. For each door, this is a little roller latch that he made for the office door. This one has a wooden spring, a bow-shaped thing, which activates that arm, and there's a little wheel that pumps into an oak plug on the jam. Very beautifully crafted object. Jim Adamson, a partner in Jersey Devil, did all the wiring and designed and built all the light fixtures. This is done with Christmas tree lights up in the clear story. And if you remember the inflatable photo I showed at the beginning, the fantasy of the 60s is closer to reality in the 70s. Here, we can build a building that's like a lantern, or that's like being outside if you use
high technology glazing, oriented properly, calculate your overhangs to keep the sun out when you don't want it, use thermal masses for the heat, movable insulation, earth integration, all these things that seem fairly boring when you're in school, but when you get out are the things that make turn your dreams into reality. So a final photo of the house from the northwest, showing how it was integrated into that site. So flying away from this California fantasy back to reality, I said that we were inventors, and Jim Anderson has a patent on a device which he calls a rotolith. If you can imagine a skylight with glazing on the south and on the north, maybe 16 feet long, a convenient length for glass, and with an insulated panel with a reflected skin which is center pivoted and counterweighted, so that it takes a tiny, maybe 12 horsepower motor to turn it, turns it in a circle, and seals tightly. You can connect this thing to a photocell, so that on a winter day it'll automatically open when the sun comes up, and the low winter sun will be reflected off that curved belly. There'll be a nice even spread of light and heat in the building. And then at night, when the sun goes down, the photocell tells the rotolith to close, and it closes and seals tightly and becomes an insulated ceiling rather than a skylight, which allows all the heat to go back out through the roof. The third position would be the summer mode, where it moves here to block the high, hot summer sun, which you don't want in the building, but allows for north light, which is reflected light without heat. There's a vent at the top there, this heat-sensitive vent that begins to open at 85 degrees, so for natural ventilation, so you can heat, light, and ventilation in one package, which is actually a skylight, which is normally just a leaking energy loser. And Jim, he got not only a patent, but he got a grant from the Department of Energy in the Jimmy Carter years that they were given for solar to build a prototype, and he built it, and then Ronald Reagan got like it, and he had a chance to use it for a while. But in the mid-'80s, he got a chance to use it on caretaker's house for a collection of buildings that we built in Virginia. And here's a prototype without any glazing going up with a little rented crane. And here it is glazed with 4 by 16 foot panels of Calwall fiberglass. This is the south elevation of what we call the gatehouse. It's basically a caretaker's house above a one-car garage shop there. And since it's the south side where the sun is, it's generously glazed, it's friendly, open to the sun, anthropomorphic, in contrast to the north elevation, which is much more streamlined, it's protected from the wind, there's no sun on this side, there are not many windows, and the image is much more sinister, almost like a sentinel hovering over the driveway to protect the owner from invaders. This is an early sketch of the project, the gatehouse, which I just showed, replaced that building at the top of the slide, which is more literally a gate. The main house runs east-west, and there's a crown of rotoliths along the roof. You come in underneath this cantilever and kind of go around, come past the gatehouse. You can park. If you're a guest and coming on a bridge that goes north-south, if you're the owner, you can go around to the east and go into the garage. Pull up the roof here, you can see that at the intersection of the cardinal points of the compass, there's a vertical element, a stair, which goes up to two bridges, one to the east for the kids, one to the west. The parents actually 3 bridges. We moved this one up, goes out to the south to the guest house. And as a general site strategy, what you want to do is kind of clear on the south to get some light in the building. It's a good place for the private area, and then backfill and replant with native species on the north. And this is a sort of refined study model of the house. A corbelled concrete base, it's a very steep site, and an independent steel frame roof with 7 rotoliths all connected to a computer, actually, with little mechanical penthouses in between. And the middle layer of the sandwich is a much more loose, kind of rounded, free-flowing wood frame, non-bearing layer. And the whole construction is just like a big hoagie sandwich. In fact, it's called the hoagie house, to the delight of the owner. This is making that corbel. It turns out the site was too steep to build formwork on. We built a flat table, precast most of these rings, stacked them with a crane, temporarily welding them together reinforced it and poured inside, and then here's adjustable shoring for that big cantilever deck, and here we're pouring that cantilever deck with an overhead crane. And this is the steel frame put up by union ironworkers under our supervision, and then we're starting the non-barrier wood layer down below. And we switch quickly to wood, send home the ironworkers, and bolting a 2x8 to each one of those trusses. They're 20-foot center bowstring trusses, and then this is put in the purlin trusses, which are just standard manufactured 20-foot long. You do all the layout, call the crane, set all the trusses, have the crane bring all the plywood that's needed up onto the roof, put down all the plywood, this time with a nail gun, by then we have. Basically build the roof first, so that it's dry in there and you don't lose any time closing the building in before winter, because the lower level framing is much more complicated, but it's non-bearing, so it can go later. This is a good time to start the construction of the fireplace. Pretty messy job right here in the center of the living room. It's a giant Rumford fireplace, which is Rumford fireplace is very shallow and very tall. It uses outside air and it throws a large amount of heat back into the room rather than off the chimney, which is the standard fireplace detail. And the entire fireplace, chimney and wall around it is veneered in Pennsylvania stone. And I went to the quarries along the Potomac to select this stone, and I brought some Franklin Wright along with me to show the stone guy what the kind of thing I was looking for. And he looked at the books and he said, "No problem. I'll just send out the falling water package." So you can try this. The spec, I think, you put it in. You get nothing bigger than 3 inches, all totally horizontal, completely variable. It works out great. And this is the interior framing. Basically, the roof is pretty standard, uniform, monolithic, designed to shade the building and not leak. But the inside is sculpted to take the light from that skylight and reflect it down into the depths of the building. And that interstitial space in between the roof and this form is used for extra insulation without extra structure, and this network of pipes and ducts that we seem to need in a lot of these modern buildings. And the roof, fascia, and soffit, everything that wears out first of the building is covered in turn-coated stainless steel with a standing seam which allows for expansion and contraction without exposing the fasteners. You're probably talking 100-plus-year roof here. The skylight sections are prefabricated and then installed with a rental crane, and then the glazing goes in on site. We glaze it with 2 layers of acrylic plastic. The siding is cedar, bevel siding. If you ever try to wrap that stuff around the curb, you know that it won't quite lay flat. It's like a boat. You have to recut each piece. Very labor intensive, but I think essential for this project, which is so huge, the thing that helps it retain a little bit of scale is its horizontality. And that earth berm that covers most of the first floor on the north side also helps to break down the scale. Where the flags are on that berm, we drill a series of wells to tap into the geothermal energy of the earth to run water source heat pumps for heating and for cooling. And there are not many windows on this side, north side, but there's a few egress windows required on the second floor in the kids' bedrooms, and they're scooped out towards the northeast for some morning sun and privacy and for stream lighting. The south side is much more generously glazed. These are heat mirror windows, which reflect towards the warmer side, so they cool in the summer and heat in the winter. There's a big mahogany intake louver that ventilates the roof. I didn't make that go. No. I think it might number 2. Okay, thanks. And the bridge continues through to the 3rd building on the site, which is the pool house. Basically, I'm not getting it.
It's number 2.
Oh wait, maybe no. I'm pushing forward. Mike, you want to throw these back on the other one? Because if you're going to have to change every one, we're going to be here all night. Is it no? Because I'm pushing the clicker. I'll try it again. I'll try to reverse and see what I get. 0. That's you doing it, right?
It's good. Now this one has to be on.
Okay.
Sorry.
Great. And then all you have to do is focus it and go back to this. It's a 2-story structure connected by an exterior stair. The lower level is a changing room to the pool, but also a solar greenhouse with plants grow in the winter, and upper level is a complete guest apartment. Actually, for him, he's a surgeon and he needs to go in there and kind of cool out at odd hours. And that arch shape holds a 360-degree deck. It culminates in this court with Widow's Walk on the western side. This is a finished view of the south elevation. The roto-lit skylights are in place, and the panels are in, and they're reflecting the winter sun down into the building. This is what that looks like from the inside. We have the panels at the top, which we fabricated anodized aluminum with foam cores and center pit have been counterweighted. Basically for finishes, everything that's vertical and horizontal in the building is sheetrock, and everything that's curved in section is cedar. And the floor could you focus those as they go? They really are nice. If I could do it up here, I definitely would. The floor covering here is green carpet, except for in the hallway there, where there's a glass block floor that lets light from the skylight go down to the lower level. And the floor on the first floor is Virginia slate for thermal storage and for wear and tear. Whenever we can afford it, we'd like to bring in visiting artists to fabricate special pieces for the building. This is Charlie Farr. He was an iron worker from Washington, D.C., who made these very beautiful andirons for the fireplace, as well as the fireplace doors and all the tools. John Rolter from Nevada, Missouri did the stonework. Tom Galbraith from New Hope, Pennsylvania built the front door, which is 2 foot-match slabs of oak. It opens into an airlock where the glass actually let into it. If you look through that porthole, the side of the door is like looking underwater at the Caribbean. It's full of tropical fish. It looks like a whole room full, but basically it's only a foot and a half thick. And it's a 450-gallon saltwater aquarium that makes up the backside of the bar, built by Doug Herr, the Blur from Woollen, North Carolina. The bar is, that was not in focus. The bar, that was definitely not. His work is blurry too. The bar is anodized plywood, little speed boards cut into it. The top is tapered laminations of maple, everything in it is carved nautilus form. It's lit from below. The soffit is actually a mirror image of the bar itself. The bar stools are done in this wiggly wrought iron in a kind of a seaweed motif. This is looking at it from the sitting in front of the fireplace. You can see it's one of the few bars where you can become disoriented before you even have a drink. Speaking about disoriented, these are the stairs by Tom Lucky from Branford, Connecticut. And Lucky felt like the stairs ought to be we had this cylindrical scheme going there, and the stairs ought to be a cylinder as well. So this is it's 9 foot 6 inch diameter. There are 14 layers of inch and 5/8 Airedale plywood, and there's actually 2 ways to go through there. And Tom spent 6 months in his shop building it and 2 weeks on site installing it. And plywood, as you know, is a really strong structurally, but very lousy for wear and tear. So what he did was route very slightly into each tread and insert a piece of this green carpet that we were using on the second floor to spiral that whole level down around into the living room. This is a plan view that shows you can actually walk down the stairs. Because if you look at a view like this, it's not obvious that you can even do anything with it. Normally a 10-foot diameter stairs is this big hulking lump presence that dominates the whole room, but this one is so light and delicate that you can actually, as you move away from it, it tends to disappear here into a series of just horizontal lines. And if you're standing down the end of that hallway and you look right through it, you just see the fireplace. You don't even see the stair. Here's the stairs, that front door, the bar, cylindrical bridges, the curved seating in front of the fireplace. Some of the individual pieces that I showed in the context of that bigger space. Very high level of design and construction of this project as well. Right down to the inside to the closet. We were on site for almost 3 years. I just want to show a couple of pieces that show we didn't lose our sense of humor during that time. This is in the weight room. In my hands, Lightweights by Jim Addison. And these are 1960 62, I think, Chrysler Imperial, 61, Chrysler Imperial taillights. I got them at the junkyard. They're wired to 110, and they're mounted on the back of the house. It gives them this amazing afterburner effect. This is some of Jim's lighting, the family entrance, and then from below a time-lapse photo by Ken Weiner from Washington, D.C., which he took for the cover of Architecture magazine. This is a view of the office, the field office at that time, the architect of the future, and her workstation. You know, we work at workstations now, not at the boards. And, yeah, we bought a computer in 1984. It was fairly early. We used it mostly to keep track of budgets. Drawing you can see this is the early one. We had to wear that helmet. If you don't put that visor down, you should have the visor down. You'll get serious cathode ray degradation. But you know, computers are a big deal. We got David Mackey's here with lots of computers, and Mark gets the big grants. We're all using them, and we're all drawing with them. But and they're going to be a part of not only architecture, but everything we do in our lives. But I'm also sensing, as we get the bigger interest in computers, we get a big art classes at the University of Washington. The furniture construction are full, and people are wanting to learn how to do pencil drawings and want to learn how to make things and get their hands and stuff. So I'm sensing that as things become more computerized and specialized, that a person who makes beautiful things with his or her hands is going to be more valuable to society in the future than they are now. At least we had these computers, and we had this pecan paneling, this 40-foot trailer, and 2 phone lines that were always busy, and a print machine that was stinking the place up, and a guy drawing, and a guy running errands, and 14 customers. It was, unless we were prepared to go out and build museums and schools, it was a pretty big operation, and we had gotten pretty far from our roots. If you look at those early projects, you can keep track of what was going on a little folder on the front seat of your truck. So I know Jim and I made a conscious decision at this time after this job, to go to smaller projects where we can do more of the work, less management. And so this is going to be sort of the peak of the lecture as far as scale goes. We're going to kind of ease down from here to some smaller projects. This is our trailers of 1987. Right after the Hoagie House, we moved them to the edge of the Everglades and near Homestead, Florida. We were there to build a house for some clients who gave me a sectional program. He's a woodworker, and he wanted his woodworking shop on the ground level, of course, to work outside and delivering materials, etc. And she's a writer, and she wanted a writing studio high enough to see the sunset over the Everglades, and they wanted a little place in the middle where they could meet. Now it's basically the program. And the site was like a jungle more than it was like a woods. We sent somebody out with a tape measure, and 15 feet, you would totally lose them. So we just sort of guessed, and we cleared an area big enough for the shop and some parking to the north. This is the way to build a house in the tropics. This one was 4 blocks from high at Hurricane Andrew. It took 200-mile-an-hour winds, and it had only cosmetic damage. And it didn't in any way that I know of exceed the Dade County building. Basically, you build some concrete block walls, you nail on some plywood formwork, pour a concrete frame. Same thing over there on the stair tower. What we're doing here is building one of 2 60-foot plywood box beams that's going to support the upper levels. We set those beams with a light frame, and basically the frame, the concrete frame, extends only in the 4 places where it needs to catch those 2 beams there. Span 30 feet across the shop with 15-foot cantilevers on either side that will become screened porches, east and west. And everything that isn't, obviously there's a row of windows around, which shows you the structural system. Those windows, when you sheetrock that ceiling, reflect a lot of light down onto the work surface. You get high ventilation, and basically you keep the walls open in the shop. There's tools and materials. And visually what this strategy does is to float that whole wooden upper level above the masonry base. And then wood, everything in South Florida is built out of trusses. It's by far the cheapest way to go. They'll build any shape for you. This house is as well. It's cheap. You sacrifice some quality, and also the wood rots very rapidly in the tropics, so the whole thing has to be covered. So this entire building is, the upper level is skinned in metal. This is the soffit, which is those little snap-in panels you see on 7-Eleven convenience stores. And in the attic, you can see some foil, like aluminum foil. Basically, what this is it's called a radiant barrier. And NASA discovered this for the space program. The Florida Solar Energy Center tested it and found that it would knock 95% of the radiant heat, which is in the tropics, is basically all the heat. back out through the roof if you vented it properly. So we have radiant barriers in all the roofs and a lot of the walls. And there's a galvanized roof, corrugated aluminum siding. This is your sectional program, the shop on the lower level, studio above, a little apartment between, screen porches with our thermal buffers on the east and west. They're basically part of the house, all with a very short heating season, which is about 3 weeks in the winter, and an exterior stair to connect them. They're big overhangs for shade. The siding is run horizontally to emphasize the cantilever. Even the ridge beam cantilever is 11 feet with little lamp light fixtures on either side. There's a very strong emphasis on the horizontal as a counterpoint to these towering pines on the site. And the building is ventilated through these oversized jalousie windows. You don't need air conditioning, you don't need double glazing. The skin is ventilated through these off-the-shelf louvers, and there's a layer of foil in there, so it's like a spacesuit with air constantly moving through it to keep it cool. This is some of Jim's metalwork on the east elevation of the studio, in contrast to some of the masonry work on the east stair tower. Indigo stucco, and actually covers with lines now, it's just more or less an armature plan. There's meant to be a common dialogue or contrast between heavy and light elements in this building. Some little light TV antennas used as columns to support that the carport or the outside work area roof. A big, heavy, monumental masonry stair that just supports itself, a double stair. And when you get to the top of the stair, there's a thin, it's only 2 inches deep bridge made of mezzanine grating. It's perforated and spans across with little chrome boat rails to the porch. And the porch door is this massive door built by the client that's actually a screen door. And then the house is oriented towards the prevailing breezes, and it uses about a half a dozen paddle fans to move the air when there is no breeze, which is rare. None of the partitions go all the way up. They're oriented to promote cross ventilation. Basically, in one of the hottest, stickiest parts of the country, the clients sleep under covers in the summertime with no air conditioning. We put in the ducts, but we never install the unit. And the client did a lot of his own woodwork using domestic hardwoods. This is a cherry floor, maple cabinets with granite tops. And the loft is suspended from trusses, no columns, just there's a non-bearing spiral stair that allows you to get up there. And the floor of the loft is mezzanine grating as well, so the hot air just rises by natural convection and goes out through clerestory windows up in the loft. And the reverse is true for both artificial and natural light, which reflect off that warped ceiling down through the perforated floor, through the levels below. There's always a breeze in South Florida if you can get a row of dense undergrowth to catch it. And that was the theory of old cracker houses that were built there before the advent of air conditioning. So here's the house literally reaching out of the jungle to get a breath of fresh air. Reflecting one of those fabulous tropical sunsets. And looking cool on one of those balmy Miami Vice evenings. This is my truck and trailer on the 1,000 miles south of the California border on the Baja California Peninsula of Mexico, the Sea of Cortez. And where I'm taking the picture is a really hairpin turn with an incredibly precipitous drop into the Sea of Cortez. And I figured if I pulled that trailer around that turn, if I didn't make it, it would drag me down into the water. So I just we parked it right there. Don and I lived down there for 9 months. The beaches are public in Baja, and we use a little PV panel for electricity, and propane for refrigeration and cooking, and I walked a mile along the beach on the side or to take a truck out. The site was in a little retirement community called Punta Pescadero. You can see a bunch of houses built over to the right. Basically, they lease to Americanos little slices of the beachfront, and you can build a house if you meet all the restricted covenants of the community. Ours is over to the left, but of course, there'd be plenty of houses all the way along. We just have one little line. And the restrictions on this one, mostly were visual, and all the houses had to be covered in white stucco, and all the roofs had to have concrete roofs pitched concrete roofs covered in red tile. They didn't say which way they had to pitch. So I thought that if you could pitch it to the center and then out to the sides, you could collect water, which would be a pretty smart thing to do in a place where it only rains 4 inches a year. And then the resulting form would be something that would be a bit more exuberant than a kind of a brooding gable roof. It could be a double roof, you can apply insulation, and you can allow breezes to come through. You need a courtyard because you're going to have neighbors, and then there's a forecourt, and then you need a roof over the storage area and carport, mostly for shade, and everything needs to be made out of concrete because there's basically no trees in this part of Mexico and most parts of Mexico, and there's a lot of termites. Cement comes in bags by ferry from the mainland of Mexico, and all the villages have little molds that they can make concrete blocks or mix it in gasoline-powered mixers on the site. Basically, it's a concrete frame with a block infill. The way houses are built in a lot of places in the world. This is not, it's something that everybody knows how to do. It's a culture where everybody still builds their own house. And this is the technique that they use to do it. These are not professional construction workers. They're basically kids that were fishermen from the local village of El Cardinal who worked with me on the project. Wood is very precious and it's used over and over again until it falls apart. Here we've got enough of it together to build a formwork for a beam. We're mixing concrete in the mixer, we're passing it up in buckets. Steel is subsidized in Mexico, and we were able to get some of it for the roof false work, built a jig, and Carlos and Canaro welded up 72, hopefully identical fish-shaped trusses. Each one was painted with anti-corrosive paint, hoisted by hand up to the roof, where they span from this vaulted beam in the center to the flat ones at the edges. And so by using identical structural components, we're able to develop this warped palm frond shape that sheds the water to the sides. Then you just rivet on some galvanized sheet metal, add the reinforcing, and then with the mixer running from about 9:30 in the morning to 10:30 at night, 35-man bucket brigade, we pour the roof with one monolithic pour, followed, of course, by grande fiesta, mucho cerveza, Spanish. And then we waterproofed it against that 4 inches of rain, and then covered it with the red tile. And they didn't say that I had to use roofing tile, so I used flooring tile. Actually, the only way that I can see to cover this form and have it drain. In the center of that chimney form is actually a vent with a roof, a double roof, and the roof also breathes through those vents in the parapet. I use the roof tile on the side of the building to make a screen so it allows air to get in there, but no bats or seagulls. So the hot air just naturally rises like a pump. This form induces a constant cool breeze to keep a layer of cool air between you and that incredibly hot sun. And then this butterfly or inverted roof form funnels a pretty good breeze and intensifies the breeze by the Venturi effect from the Sea of Cortez. So there are a lot of practical reasons why this roof takes its form, but of course everybody asks, why is it upside down? The first question, particularly the guys who live on either side, are interested in that. And they did also in these covenants and rules, they wanted me to respond to traditional Mexican architecture, and I think they were thinking of these haciendas and arches that were kind of brought in by the Spanish. But I went way back to the Aztecs, the Mayas, with these canted walls and the gargoyle that spits out the water. The parapet and the chimney forms are all directly out of the pre-Hispanic Mexican tradition. And then I was looking at things by the water, waves, seagulls, manta rays, things that were curved in shape. But the Mexicans say they have a really good idea where the geometry of that roof comes from. And they say that it's exactly like the rear end of a 1959 Chevrolet. Turns out that, I don't know if you guys would remember that one, but it was true. Such a car nut, and I didn't realize it. I mean, like these guys, yeah, it's amazing. Architects were sort of nuts. How many architects come to go to Columbus, Indiana, from everywhere to go, and just go crazy to come and look at buildings, and you think you're in the middle of nowhere, nobody's going to come. But my students came from the University of Washington, drove all the way down with one warm rainier beer for me in Mexico, where they go $20 extra for Corona. But I started to take, we got a lot of architects visiting, and I started to take some pictures of some of them. Some of you can recognize on the right there, Louis Kahn. It's rumored to be dead, but it's actually not true. He's just put on a few pounds. He looks really great. He's really happy to be out in the spotlight. He's shown here with Louis Kahn, and they're having this giant argument over whose ideas I stole more on. I'd say it's probably about equal, I would think. Gargan meets Corbu, the desert meets the sea, and the house is a bridge. And in this case, the desert is being turned into something. You can see it attempt denuded of trees, and attempt to turn it into a golf course. There's going to be a lot of sand traps in that. And as you get closer, you can see too, it turns out that all that stuff they've taken away is what holds the dune. We left as much as we could on our site. There are two little storage buildings, a concrete carport, a little concrete trellis leading through the courtyard to the Sea of Cortez. And we use stones from the beach in concentric circles for paving, those perforated blocks of celosia that allow for cross ventilation with privacy. All the concrete work is plastered in rough texture stucco. The Mexicans are incredible plasters. They work with a fishing line and everything. All those columns on the front of the sloping column line up at every point. This is the elevation at Sea of Cortez. 3 separate buildings, 2 breezeways connected by this 3-dimensional reinforced concrete frame. The doors we got from the States, some friends made them, drove them down, paid a big monita at the border. They're folding glass doors, and you can fold them open and completely open this house because it's a covered porch just facing the ocean. There's no need for screens. The only bugs are really scorpions. We deal with those little tile canopies ahead. 2 bedrooms on the left and right, a living room in the center, a little study and kitchen that poke out into the breezeways to get some view and ventilation. This is the detail of the kitchen, like a refreshment stand serving food out onto the veranda. And floor slab cantilevers over the stone base, and it's tiled inside and out with handmade tortillo tiles. It's very rustic. It has little dog footprints in it. Everyone's a different size, different color, different shape, and it's really hard on furniture. But this whole rustic feel of the floor, it provides a pretty good counterpoint to the architecture, which is a little hard-edged and rigid, and particularly in the plan level. There are folding doors not only to the sea, but from building to building. So you can open up these various combinations, but you get a line around the house at 7 feet that relates, of course, to the horizon line. So as you walk around the building, you get these constantly changing framed views of the Sea of Cortez, all under this warping, cloud-like pink ceiling. And we got a Gringo finishing crew in to do the woodwork. It was easy to get. It was pretty good diving right out of the house. And Doug Kirk came all the way from North Carolina. He built this media center, which doesn't look like a media center, but you can go and slide a few things and expose the CD player and the TV and all the white man technology. And they used, it's called Aztec style. They used all the images of their culture came from the money. They got the serpent or the eagle with the serpent in his claws and the sun coming up over the water. And we got kind of a nice style. We didn't use much wood, so only real detail work in the house. And we got some tiles, and we used these grecas, which are traditional Aztec waveforms for the backsplash of the kitchen. And that's really the only part of the house that's detailed. If you need a bookshelf or a bed, everything is just a concrete slab. Really simple materials, really simple construction. This is sort of a final view before the guy built his house door of the whole complex. And the Mexicans who work on the building are really proud of it. They say never before in Mexico has been a roof. And yeah, I don't know. If you go to Mexico City and see Candela's work, it's really nice. And since the earthquake, all the roofs there. You know, they wouldn't know. None of these guys have ever been outside of that little village. And that's so amazing that they built this roof with seemingly very complicated structure. But the technology that was used, both for the construction and for the passive cooling, is the way that successful buildings have been built in that part of the world for centuries. So what could have been incredible, we could still be there 5 years ago, still be there trying to finish this house. We knocked it out in 11 months. Let's go right out. Really? Does everyone go out? Why do we have to sit out of there? We sit at one. If you guys wanted to do it, we'll do it. Okay. This building was built in 1936 by the Red Cross in a place in the Florida Keys, in a place called Isla Morada. And in 1935, the year before this building was built, the reason this building was built is a hurricane, about way stronger than Hurricane Andrew, that destroyed the railroad that used to go from Miami to Key West. Anybody who stayed on the island was killed, and the Red Cross came in and built 25 houses for the survivors. And what might be expected after a hurricane of this magnitude, these houses are incredibly stout. The walls, floor, and roof are reinforced concrete. The walls are a foot thick with double cages of rebar. But they use a little salt water in the mix. And 60 years down the road, big pieces of it are starting to pop off. And so they're historic buildings and they need to be restored. And our clients bought this one, along with in the foreground is a little utility building carport combo with a flat roof from about the same era. And as well as the lot next door. And our job was to build, over to the right, we're starting to sort of see a new studio. There are ceramic artists, clients. On the lower level, with a bedroom wing above it, all new construction needs to be above the hurricane high tide. We have to physically connect it to the old Red Cross house, which is grandfathered in, you can use it for living, kitchen, and dining, and then to put guest quarters on top of the carport. And this is the new studio building. Reinforced concrete designed to take a Force 5 hurricane. Two-way slab, both for the ceiling of the shop and the floor of the bedroom area. 3 bays, 3 bedrooms at top, blue cross ventilation. Big overhangs, a radiant barrier in the roof, a continuous soffit vent, and continuous ridge ventilation. Once again, keeps this building very cool without air conditioning. The ducts go in, but not. The unit on the studio level on both the ocean and bay sides are roll-up garage doors. So the whole building opens up on both sides with great breezes and a view of the ocean while they're working in the shop. The kiln is, of course, on the leeward side. The buildings are all heated to go out towards the road rather than back into the shop. And then a covered bridge connects the bedroom wing to a stair tower, which goes up for a little bit, little meditation space, a better view of the Atlantic Ocean, and then down to connect to the old Red Cross house. You can see that we've opened up the backside of that house for a little view and ventilation and added a deck made of recycled plastic, with rock out and a canopy, canvas canopy shade. And then for the guest quarters, we found a pretty vintage 1972 Airstream trailer in a mobile home park down the road. We talked the owner out of it. We got built a crib, we got a crane, picked it up, and dropped it right down on the carport roof and bolted it through. Done. Pretty good, I thought. Yeah, you got the 1930s hurricane house, 1970s Airstream trailer, and some 1990s architecture. And, you know, I guess as I understand this decon that we do nowadays, all I have to do is turn these at different angles to each other, and I have a masterpiece. But you know, we're traditional architects. You can see we go back to the old days, the old ways. And what we decided to do was to try and find an architectural element that was strong enough to tie these diverse elements into one unified position. And this was the idea that we had. Once again, the idea of the building as an armature for nature, a dialogue, as it were, between nature and technology. Only instead of, this is the 90s, and we all know the environmental crisis is a lot more dire than when we started working with it 20 years ago. Instead of this kind of good vibe, symbiotic, earth-sheltered relationship like the Hill House, this is more like a struggle, and nature wins. That's our scenario. So this is the living screen. It's a galvanized rib lap, screwed through a little frame of galvanized hat channel. Those are the papayas growing on the back side of it, and we use it like a wrapper around the building as the 3 feet out as the first line of defense against the breeze of the hurricane. It goes down to the ground to pick up the plants, and then up above the roof to hide the Airstream trailer from the building inspector. You can store a trailer really anywhere you want on your property. It's in the storage. You can see it's over to the left, up on top of the roof there. So the screen wraps around the utility building, continues as a bridge over the entry, and there's a little, a couple of threaded rods coming out and hang an entry canopy, which is our physical connection to the old building. Connect to that stair tower, and there's a covered bridge going over the bedroom wing, and it wraps around the base side of the bedroom wing. And of course, in a corrosive environment like that, it will eventually rust, but as the plants grow over, it will be completely replaced by a living wall. And basically what it will do, since this is the roadside, highway side, building it, it will provide oxygen, which of course will mitigate the fumes and the noise from the highway, and this building will actually produce things that help the greenhouse layer rather than take it away. Excuse me. So this is a little start. This is after 3 months. This is one $5 passion fruit plant. This is after 6 months, two $5 passion fruit plants. So $10 worth of landscaping, no maintenance. Not only have something that is replacing this rusted screen, but the whole building becomes edible as well. This is the project that we're working on now. The house in Palm Springs. We've been working on it for 2 years. It's not hard to get a permit ready for a golf course in Palm Springs. I don't know where they get all the water. Look, it's in the middle of the desert. The whole road map of it is green. But somehow we were in the floodway. Now we moved the house a little bit and we're out of the floodway. We have a permit. We expect to start it maybe this winter, maybe this spring. Basically, the way the Indians used to live around Palm Springs was to build a little village and then put a ramada over it for shade. And that's the way this house works. It's a kind of heavy rammed earth and concrete house. It's in a U-shape with a courtyard around. The courtyard also being a pretty good device for a hot, dry place. It's over 100 4 months out of the year. And then the steel frame that supports that concrete roof below extends through, and there's a big canopy roof over the whole thing. It's just like you go to the beach and take an umbrella. That's what this house does. And in that middle section over the courtyard, there are movable louvers that allow either to bring in sun, reflect the sun in the winter, or close it off. It's an exciting project in a pretty inhospitable place, which we're starting to get some public projects, which is great. They're pretty small, but the amount of people that use them is large, and the impact on the public is larger than just these private houses that we've been known for. This is at a place called Seaside on the Florida Panhandle. The deal here is that on the left is the town of Seaside. There's 300 houses. On the right, until Hurricane Opal 3 weeks ago, there were some of the prettiest beaches in North America that just took completely disappeared. This turquoise water and this white sand beaches that were always voted better than Hawaii in terms of whenever the travel magazines did it. And of course, in between were these really sensitive dunes and eelgrass and dune grass that held the whole thing in place. And if the people from the houses were to walk willy-nilly across the dunes, then all the grass would disappear and then the whole thing would wash away. So a very sensitive kind of relationship between those people and the water. And so what needs to be done is to kind of funnel them. And at the end of every street, there's a walkover that takes you across the vegetation very gently. And the developer hired a different architect to do each one. And if you know the architect for Seaside, I was pretty surprised that we got the call at all. But we did, we're at the very end one. So there's always a chance that if it doesn't work out, it could be part of the next town. They're pretty proud of this. These are some rare photos of it, actually. It's a series of these. So if you go over the dune, you're allowed to put just behind the crest of it a little place to sit and watch the sunset. But then you have to be 6 feet wide all the way down to the beach, no wider. We did it in a series of these 8-foot sections. We basically fabricated right there on site, just Jim and I, starting at the beach. We had a guy make up all the vents, and these are 8-foot bays done in juniper. And actually, what happened in the last hurricane was the beach was sheared off about 9 days back. These things held together as units, and they floated. People paddled. But they can't reassemble them because it just drops off, so we have to redesign some kind of new one. But it was really did pretty well in the hurricane. The whole Seaside lost all walkovers to the whole beach. But the strategy behind this one was to use juniper, which is a wood. It's eastern white cedar, really. It comes from fallen trees in the swamps near Apalachicola, which is within 100 miles from the site. It's harvested, milled, and air dried about 50 miles from there, and then we use it on the site. So there's a really closed loop of the building materials. We're starting to realize that it's not a real good idea to say dig marble up in Vermont, ship it over to Italy, slice it into little slabs, and then bring it back and slap it onto an office building in Houston. It's air conditioned within an inch of its life, and it's about 60% occupied 8 hours a day. That if we keep building buildings with this strategy, we're not going to have many building materials by the next century. So this project is fairly successful on that level, and it turns out aluminum can be part of that picture. It's a pretty high energy material to produce, But in marine alloy aluminum, it's about 90% recycled content. It's light and it's strong, and in this case, it can take 150-mile-an-hour winds, the parasol section, which we did find in the last hurricane, and we're finding some future ones too, I hope. The idea was to get a local firm to fabricate the thing, bolt it together. If we made this out of wood, you could get aluminum, you can get a 25-year paint job. Wood, to put in new structure just about every year. So the maintenance is almost zero on this one compared to wood. It was stronger, lighter, more durable, and we just had it fabricated, routed through 4 holes that we had drilled perfectly there in the deck and bolted into our 8x8 structure. And so you can see our thing takes its own little rhythm as it goes over to the dune. The other beach pavilions there have these little picket fences, pavilion, and then which actually is causing some problems with the bottom. And then it just gets wider, and when it gets to the top, there's a place to sit. There's a detail of the lattice work on that parasol. And then it turns back to the seating turns back into railing and cascades down to the Gulf of Mexico. That's what it used to look like from the beach with the seaside water tower in the background. You have about 9 of those. The other ones are just hanging in space too. The dune was just cut right back to about 20 feet this side. And this is what it looked like to a little kid, and what it looked like to an architectural photographer. Really good one. Yeah. Another lesson: first, rent the tools when you're going to beat them up and get an architectural photographer to take them. This is one of the few places on the Gulf where the sea turtles lay their eggs. And if there's too much light on the shore, the babies will head towards the light rather than towards the water, and they'll die. So here we have 30-watt bug light set. It's very subtle. In fact, it's just almost like moonlight, but it's very romantic. It's a pretty nice focus for the pavilion, which is pretty. It is a place where people get married. Seaside, and the place where one wants the sunset. It's one of the real landmarks of the town. So we're hoping for more of those. I'm going to shift gears at the end to show some of the work here that I've done with students. In the summer, as most of you know, I teach at the Eskimo School at Warren, Vermont, which also comes and teaches at Ball State in the spring. At Eskimo, we have 2-week courses for owner builders, design courses for contractors, building courses for architects. We teach Stanley tool executives how to use their own tools. This is a class that I did 2 summers ago with architecture students from all over the country. No Ball State. We built this bandstand for the local farmers market. It's on Saturdays and it's on skids, so you can drag it around. Basically, I think at Christmas time, Santa, they bring it around and Santa hands out the toys. It's meant to be like a little piece of a covered bridge. And during the year, part-time, at least in the spring, I teach at the University of Washington in Seattle, and this is groundbreaking ceremonies for the first permanent structure on the campus of the University of Washington, designed and built by students. And it's pretty exciting work with architecture students, as we learned here at Ball State. There's usually one of me and about 12 of them, and the materials are flying all over the place. There's a lot to keep track of, and of course, with the prevailing aesthetic nowadays, a project like this can be done. Maybe not. And that looks like a lot of stuff you see in the magazines. But in my class, we try to finish pretty clean, and what's all that? Is this sort of minimal. Elegant, hopefully, structure poking out of the landscaping behind the architecture school. And it's basically 2 sort of skewed trusses covered with screen, planting counterweighted by about 4,000 pounds of concrete buried on university property, which is pretty much a permanent part. On closer inspection, it turns out to be a stair, which when you get to the top of the stair, you just get a slightly better view of the parking lot. The students call it the stairway to nowhere, which they see as a metaphor for architectural education. We always have a dedication ceremony for the project, so that the students are committed to finishing it, and for one day at least, building becomes the focus of the architecture school. this particular year, we had an exchange student from Finland in the class. I said we were having a finishing party, so we rounded up these Finnish dancers. And then, of course, it hangs around. If it hangs around long enough, which a lot of temporary structures usually do, it becomes a great place for students to hang out and a constant reminder of what architectural students can do if you give them the opportunity. For 2 summers, we ran a studio at the Danny Mood Community Garden in Seattle's International District. In order to have a plot in this garden, you've got to be over 62 years old and live in the district. Most of the gardeners are Japanese, Chinese, Korean, Filipino, Vietnamese, Cambodian, mostly Asian, and mostly don't speak English. Fortunately, we have some Asian kids in the class. A friend of mine speaks both Vietnamese and Chinese, and we talked to the gardeners, and we were able to develop a program with some priorities for the garden, and we built a series of really simple structures in a kind of a generic Asian style that's not particular to any culture. This is a little tool shed. Built. This is a vegetable washing and drying area. Wherever there's a tall sort of sculpture like that, a structure like that, there's indication that there's water there, so they know they can go get a bucket of water. The centerpiece is this pig roasting pit. For 20 years they've had, what, scratch your chest? Sorry. 20 years. Now, too bad I didn't know about that earlier. For 20 years they've had the pig roast, community pig roast, which is a really important community organizing event in the garden. And this is not a community pig roast, but the community was so enthusiastic about the work that my students did that they roasted a small pig for the class. We gave them this bamboo tree, which is enormous now, and dedicated this little plaque which tells all the major players in the project. They always have a ribbon cutting ceremony. The mayor comes and makes a speech. The chairman of the architecture department comes, usually for the first time. He gets a t-shirt. And there's a lot of press coverage. And it's a great story for the news. And it's a great story for everybody involved, really. It's a good situation. The students get to work for real clients and get to learn a little bit about building. The clients, including even afford the materials, get the fruits of their labors. Corporate sponsors get to polish their image a little bit by donating the materials, and the city and the university get to take credit for having a service routine together without actually do very much. And look what we get to build. It's a pretty fabulous statement in contrast to those monuments of unleased office space in the background. What we're saying is that hand craftsmanship, ethnic tradition, and growing food are an important use of land in the city. And there's a lot of things for a tiny project by a handful of architects to say. The University of Washington has also started a program in Cuernavaca, Mexico, which I go to for 5 weeks. In the winter, we're in the process of building a school, possibly a clinic, or a squatter settlement about 45 minutes outside of Cuernavaca. This is a structure that we built last winter using native brick or tabique. We built these spiral columns filled with concrete. There's a thin tile wall over the top, basically only about an inch or so thick, double tile wall with a little ferro cement in between, the shade spanning between 2 beams, and it's extended out with a little steel and then covered with bamboo trellis. So basically becomes shaded and outdoor classroom. This is the highest portion of the site. It'll be what they call a kiosk. We have a commitment for that. In the spring of every year we do, through a grant from a local contractor, Howard S. Wright, we design and build one community project. This particular project was a series of seating areas along the Ship Canal in Seattle. This is a rectangular one which incorporates a little concrete chessboard and those screens which allow vegetation to grow. So there's one that's rectangular, there's a circular one, actually 2 semicircular ones, make up a circular one. This is one, there's a single one with an armature for plants, and then a triangular one. This is all a very kind of linear park that goes along the Ship Canal, and at the end is an earth form that's used as a community gathering place. We have a big fire pit. It's earth surrounded by silver birches. Last year we worked for the Environmental Education Group at the university, which is a preschool program which for about a third of the kids are developmentally disabled. We work with the occupational therapists and did a climbing environment for the kids that developed a lot of motor skills on. It was out in the courtyard of the building, so it was covered, and we were able to basically suspend most of it from the building, which allows the wheelchair kids to move around underneath it, and even to have social events like cocktail parties right under there while the kids are playing. This is one project that we did about 5 years ago, exactly 5 years ago, using university. It's not really a student project, but it used a lot of university equipment and tools and students. This is the other side of the Aurora Bridge that goes through Fremont district of Seattle. And Fremont is a place where there's a lot of artists, and of course artists are the stormtroopers for gentrification, so developers are kind of moving in, trying to push them out. And in this situation, the Fremont Arts Council got a grant to do something with this space under the bridge. And if you look at the bottom of the picture there, where the bridge crosses the ship canal, it's basically about 150 feet tall with a big boat to go under it. And where I'm standing taking a picture, you can actually touch the bottom of the bridge, and I'm surrounded by dead beer cans and mattresses and normal detritus that you find under the bridge pretty much anywhere in America. And the Arts Council had an open competition for the space underneath here, and we entered with, I entered with Donald Walter and 2 university graduate students, Will Martin and Ross Whitehead. And our scheme was based on that old fable of the 3 billy goats go up to patrol under the bridge. And this was actually a study model of what we built. And the way it worked was they had a jury of professional artists and activists, and local artists and activists, and they picked the finalists, and then the people of Fremont got to vote at the Fremont Fair. And the jury actually, I think it was kind of divided. A lot of them thought this was pretty silly. The scheme, some thought it was all right, and basically they didn't vote it in the top 3, so we didn't get paid to continue, but there was enough sentiment to allow it to go through without any funding. So we went ahead and entered it anyway, and the people of Seattle voted 6-1 in favor of it. So we were faced with the task of taking this model and blowing it up in reality. You know, as architects, we work with models all the time, but the transition here was a lot harder. So what we had to do was to cast on the top of this thing rubber mold, take some plastic ones, and then slice cross sections through it so we could actually accurately grab it, make an armature out of steel, cover it with mesh. Volkswagen was donated without a motor, of course, and school kids came from all over Seattle to put items in it for a time capsule. And then with the aid of a pump truck and a lot of volunteers, we slathered it over with a single coating with ferro cement, plastered it inside and out, and then came back and did all the finish work for the hair and skin. And this budget was still pretty low by the time we paid off all the other winners in the entry and our insurance and everything like that. So we raised a little extra money on site by selling Fremont Troll t-shirts and shower caps. Of course, in a city like Seattle, where there's always a chance of a shower. And then basically we dug down and found the original street. So we saved a lot of money on Troll Plaza. We only had to pour a little strip in the center that makes it look as though that Volkswagen was just dragged out of passing traffic. And the city of Seattle kicked in with some broken pieces of street, which we used for the retaining walls. There's a leaking expansion joint right over his head. So all winter long, when it's raining, there's a constant kind of trickle of drool that goes down and keeps it pretty grimy. And then we used we used the Volkswagen hubcap, which is covered with prismatic diffraction grid, which takes the light and breaks it into a rainbow of colors. And so when a car comes up over the hill, the headlights hit this eye, and there's a big blast of light. It's a drunk driver's worst nightmare. That's what it looks like now with lighting. It turns out that the activity level of the area has increased quite a bit. It's 24 hours a day there's somebody there to control. During the day it's mostly kids, which is great, but at night, particularly at 2 o'clock when the bars close, there's a kind of an unruly element that shows up there, sort of Beavis and Butthead mentality. Joy's going down to the patrol, and so the city has been forced to make some lighting installation. And to their credit, I think they've done some pretty dramatic, Mercury Vapor lights up there. So it really provides a dark background, enabling Nancy Coleman to take these nighttime photos. This is at the dedication ceremonies. He's totally covered with kids, which he is all day long, every day. The band is just getting down with some controlled music, and a miracle happened. The sun came out in Seattle in December, and was so low in the sky that it showed under the bridge, illuminating the visage. There he is at the end of the long axis of the ship canal. It was only last week, it was Halloween, which is now called Trolloween in Seattle. And about 400 or 500 people gather in costume and control. There's drumming, there's the kids playing, poetry reading, everything. And there's a torchlight parade that goes down through this arcade, and they're all chanting. The acoustics are incredible here under the bridge. So, in addition to providing the urban statement of what you do at the end of this axis, what you do with dead space under the bridge, and the political statement, and I think Seattle needed to make around, Fremont in particular needed to make around 1990. We've participated in helping develop a tradition of the around a long time after on the ground. A lot of things are provided that the city actually spent less on than they would on the police department. I wanted to show a couple of photos from the current project which we're sort of in the process of doing. We did this in October. We started October 1st. Actually, it's a play structure for Denise Louis preschool in an Asian neighborhood of Seattle. It's a Head Start program, and we decided to build this giant dragon that kids can play in. And two of my friends from Vermont came from the SMR school, Joan Heaton. Dave Robinson came from Vermont, and we committed to doing it. We set up a little jig. This is a section of dragon's body, basically. He's got this diamond-shaped body with a floor in it. It changes as it goes through. These are some legs being fabricated. Just process slides. Those are his front legs and his back legs, and all the body sections kind of lifted up there. We built a beam between, and then slid them all into position. So basically, our build slices through this dragon. It's a pretty good size, about 14 feet tall and 70 feet long. You count his tail, which we're building here. And the tail is the way the kids go up into it. And it's painted with gold paint, the same color as kind of a bad Chinese restaurant. Well, there it is, the tail. And then we installed the red circulation spine through it, and a big kind of spinning turbo slide that comes out of the mouth there. That's what it looks like inside. We're covering it with plywood here, and with scale, which is normally made out of red and green rolled roofing. See the feet there are poured out of concrete, and those mesh toes, which are going to ferro cement, and the kids are going to make mosaic on the top. This would be the head starting to get framed here. Slide there, see some of the toes. This maybe runs far. You see the tail goes all the way to the end of the picture, it lifts up in the air, and there's big flames on the end of it. And we built a skyline across the bridge at the top. I wanted to show one of my cars. I'm going to say a little bit about cars at the end. You can see that I like it. This is actually Dallas car. We've had this for quite a few years. We got it in Indianapolis, actually. It's a 1968 Chrysler Newport convertible. It's shown in front of some 1988 architecture. Stairway to nowhere. My theory is that if you build all the buildings that you design, there won't be very many of them, for sure. If you take the time to do all the work, if you make them as energy efficient as you can, you won't be using too much of the world's resources compared to other architects. If you live on site in a tiny Airstream trailer, you won't be using much energy, and you certainly won't be commuting to work. I'm pretty old, and I don't have any kids. I eat very little meat, which is a real good energy statement to do too. 2,500 gallons of water for one time to eat, lots of land and stuff like that too. So I figure if I got this really good energy lifestyle, I can drive a big gas guzzler car. I need to go out for a beer and go to the movies, which none of them maybe can. But the point is that, you know, I think in the 25 years since this car was built, more than 27 years since this car was built, and it's lasted that long, which is pretty amazing too. It's pretty energy efficient statement right there. But this car is basically 4 times as long as a Honda Civic, and it barely gets between gas stations. I mean, I don't think you can build a car like this today and sell it, but we build the architectural equivalent of it every day, many times all over the world, and no one thinks twice about it. So I'd say in the 25 years since it's been built, automakers have actually done a lot more to respond to these energy challenges in our culture than have the architects. The automakers, and although the government made them, have really increased the mileage standards, and the product is virtually unrecognizable from 1970. The same can't be said for architects. We had some really simple design solutions back there 20 years ago, in the first energy crisis, passive solar, but since that time, you know, 1976, when Jimmy Carter came into the presidency, we were right in the middle of this thing. Gas went from 25 cents to $1 a gallon, and put some solar collectors on the roof of the White House and declared the moral equivalent of war on energy, and he initiated tax credits for solar innovation, and I think we're on the way to a solution. And then in 1980, Ronald Reagan won the election. He took the solar collectors off the roof. One of the first things that he did, I mean, why? So he repealed the tax credits, fired all the solar guys at the Department of Energy, started pumping massive amounts of money into nuclear, oil, and coal, and fostered this bogus energy glut. So the architects who were kind of following along started to lose their clients. The businesses went broke, went to Germany and Japan, and the architects moved on to postmodernism, I guess, which is perfect for Ronald Reagan. All face and no space. And then by 1988, it went for George Bush, the decon, the bomber, the decon. And finally, you know, after 12 years of this stuff, it virtually disappeared. It comes back. So, I don't know, this is the 90s, and it's much more desperate. We have a Democratic president. It's not getting too much worse because of a good vice president. There is at least a greeting at the White House going on. And at Ball State, of course, this is not a secret. We all have to work together, and style is no longer the issue. Yet since 1970, there have been so many goofy styles, so many wrong terms that it's actually almost embarrassing to be part of this profession sometimes. Sometimes the profession is embarrassing. But we all have to work together. This is sort of a symbol of recycling, I guess. What can be done? This is the Chrysler fireplace. We installed this in the Mahoney House. This is in 1962. Chrysler in Newport. Saved money by buying the front 2 feet of it. Brought it back to Virginia, in South Carolina, where I bought it. There's a hinge grill. The hinge on the grill behind it is an energy efficient outside air, UL proof, low combustion, and wood stove. And we connect the headlights and the taillights of 62 taillights, to 110. Put them on a dimmer. The whole thing gives this kind of weird Stephen King flavor. And to show that you can adapt to any style of architecture, we have the Chrysler colonial mantelpiece. All it's really missing is a roadkill. Maybe a spotted owl. And George Bush had won re-election. But now maybe we have a chance to make the cars become extinct before the birds. This is the only example of nuclear architecture that I have. This is a cruise missile. It says on it, 15 times Hiroshima danger, do not deploy in Europe. It gives incredible stature to this little ship. And I took this picture before, in the years before George Bush, former president George Bush, in a not very subtle display of his energy policy, employed these to Baghdad during the First Gulf War. Baghdad, if you remember from your humanities classes, the cradle of civilization, the place where the Garden of Eden repeatedly was, a place where writing was invented, a place where archaeologists worked with spoons instead of shovels, and when he got done with it, it looked like a Peter Eisman project. It's pretty simple. Basically, buildings use about 40% of all energy, I think it is. This doesn't include the energy embodied in materials of construction. Nuclear energy, and oil and coal for that matter, represent death and environmental destruction. Solar energy and renewables and recycling represent sustenance and survival, so if you want to contribute to the continuation of the species, you'll design and build energy efficient buildings like that solar gate across the street. So, this is me on the cover of the New York Times magazine many years ago. We don't really get on the cover, but we got inside the New York Times magazine, which is pretty amazing. We got in Time magazine, U.S. News and World Report, architectural publications. We get invited to speak at a lot of places, even Wall State, every so often. And so it's pretty amazing because you guys are architecture students and keep track of what's going on. And if you look at this work, it's not exactly mainstream. There's not much of it. It just doesn't bother me. There's not much of it. Got deep. It's pretty good. But it isn't exactly trend-setting stuff. And I think what it shows is that people seem to enjoy hearing about it and seem to learn from the approach and the style in which it is made and the values that it represents. So I think what it shows is that it is possible to do a small body of work, do it carefully, stick to your guns and stay with something that you believe in, and get some recognition for it. Also that you should retain a sense of humor that's essential for anything you choose for your life's work. So don't sit around watching the tube. Toss that sucker out, turn it into a solar collector, hit the road, put the wind in your back, one of these Jersey Devil t-shirts, which actually have a big sack of them right up stage, the new hip black. Put the wind in your back and go out and build something that doesn't become a burden on future generations. That's all. God, thank you all for coming. The question was, is there any sacrifices that a building has to make to turn it into a passive solar building? And I don't think that there is any sacrifices that it has to make, other than sometimes the temperature swings are a little bit more generous in a solar building. But in terms of aesthetics and stuff like that, that's the key. I think what we basically do is we use a lot of that energy stuff to organize where the building goes and how it faces and what shape it has. And if you don't have that as a guideline, I don't know how you think about the shape of the building. You don't think about how the light comes in there, what it does when it's in there, and how the heat comes in, and how it stays in there. What do you use for a guideline? So I don't even know what it sacrifices. I think what it sacrifices, and it's more, I think what it gains is that it gains a little, it is in tune with nature. And you feel that inside. And you're much more aware of natural light, you're much more aware of temperature, you're much more aware of things. In Florida, for instance, most of those buildings that most people live in are just these kind of sealed boxes with air conditioners on them, so you get a lot of noise. The air conditioner is set up for the birds, which are basically all over the place down there. So, and, yeah, I don't think I don't know, I think at the beginning architects considered it a nuisance. But I think it's actually an opportunity rather than a restriction.
I know back in the early 70s when we first started developing a lot of ideas about solar energy, there was a lot of indirect passive and active solar systems that were both inconvenient and very high technological, a lot of water systems, storage.
You don't have those anymore.
Yeah, they don't have them. Right?
But you said passive solar.
Passive and active both.
Yeah, well, there were both. There were some diagrammatic buildings that were, you know, in the beginning, I think Buckminster Fuller is the guy that said this. When you make something first, it's usually ugly. And you're the first guy to make it. Well, you're making it first. And when people do it after you, they can make it more beautiful. And I think the 70s was that time. There was stuff, obviously, there's a book called The Golden Thread, which traces solar history of solar energy all the way back to the Romans. And so we reinvented a lot of stuff in the 70s, and I think it lay dormant fairly much, and we're redoing it in the 90s. And I think what's happened in the last 20 years is kind of quietly building materials have come up so that you don't have to do quite so much dramatic moves in the architecture to get the energy performance. So you do it, but you still, I mean, you can face a building any way you want to now, but then, what do you do for lighting? So it's still, there's a diagram that the building needs to be long on the east-west axis, if it can be. When you get an unusual site where you can't do the ideal building, that's when all the conflict comes. But I guess we don't have any of those unusual buildings now because we don't have so many solar buildings now. I think we have more in the 70s than we have now. We have buildings that perform a little bit better because they're a little bit better insulated, and the glass industry has made better glass, but we don't have more solar buildings.
Have you gotten away from indirect passive solar? I mean, I didn't see a whole lot of collectors or storage systems.
We did one in 1975 and now it's it. But, all those houses in Florida have it for hot water. It pays for itself in about yeah, but down there, you can't do solar hot water in Florida. Anyway. But, I don't think that necessarily works for a building like this. But what the big difference that I see from now 20 years ago is that it is still quite economical in some systems to make the electricity in some places with solar. Any place that's remote, it's usually the most reliable and the most comfortable. So I think that's pretty encouraging. Anyone? Okay.
Thanks a lot, Steve.